So I just got to the Xbox showcase, just doing some quick thoughts about everything we just saw afterwards, and I gotta say, overall, I loved it. There are a couple little things that I am a little hesitant on that I want to talk about, but I gotta say, overall, I thought that was a fantastic showcase. I think one of the things I actually really liked about it is that there was this, onslaught of, here's a reveal, here's a reveal, here's a reveal, this is coming to Game Pass, this is coming to Game Pass, here's all these games, and then after that, Phil Spencer comes out and goes, all right, that was a lot. The actual breakdown, though, is, here's these 11 games from our game studios, here's these 14 games from our collaborators, which the quiet part of that is that a lot of those are probably going to be multi-platform titles. We already know some of them are, but still, they showed up and they're coming to Game Pass. And then also kind of broke it all down by what's coming out when, right? We've got some DLC and expansions coming out later during the summer. There are some full releases coming out before the end of the year with Starfield, as well as Forza, which we'll talk about a little more in a bit. And then all those other titles that are targeted for 24, possibly sometime further out. They definitely learned from last year to not set that expectation of like, hey, everything's coming in the next year, and that ended up not happening. Now they talk about it, there is a general plan and goal of when it's coming out, but they're not going to dedicate a specific time slot just yet. As far as what we saw, I'm going to start with the first party stuff. Amazing that we finally got to see some stuff for Fable. While it was a little bit more of a CG style trailer, it was actual rendered in-game, so that does give us an idea of it, even though we're not really seeing actual raw gameplay just yet. South of Midnight is another one I'm super curious about, but the trailer just kind of gave us the basic pitch of what it's looking like. No, raw gameplay just yet for that either. And Star Wars, while I partner one and didn't have any actual gameplay just yet, did announce that they're actually going to show gameplay tomorrow at Ubisoft's event. So I think that's a really cool little setup. And there was so much more. I think one of the really cool things about the first party studios is how many of them are ones that were acquired back during that kind of, 2018, 2019 period. And a lot of questions were going, hey, when are we going to see the games from these? When are we going to see the games from these? Well, inXile was here, Obsidian was here, Compulsion Games was here. All of them had games to show off, and I think that's really exciting. We don't know for sure when all of them are actually coming out, but we did get a glimpse of them, and they're looking really cool. I will say for me personally, Avowed is one that I was very excited for, and I'm a little more mixed on the gameplay that we saw. It's a little rough around the edges, which to be fair, is something I think is true of a lot of Obsidian games at launch. There's usually a little bit of extra polish that comes later on. I'm still very excited for it just because of the base concept and pitch, but I definitely want to see a lot more past what this initial trailer has now given us. And one dev that I've been really curious to see what their next game was going to be, the team behind Banner Saga, revealed their new game, which I thought looked really interesting. Now, as far as the third-party stuff goes, there were a couple that showed up that I was really excited about. I think the biggest thing for me was that, look, I love RPGs, so the Atlas presence was awesome. Persona 3 Reload and Persona Tactica both got leaked before the show, sadly, but there was a third surprise. Project Fantasy is now fully revealed. It is Metaphor ReFantazio, and we actually got to see a lot of that in action, and it is a amazing looking game visually. It's like they took everything they learned from making the UI and stuff in Persona 5 and just kind of went even harder. Now, obviously, aside from all these announcements back to back to back, Starfield got its own dedicated whole back half where we saw basically 40 minutes of gameplay. I actually hit a point while watching it where I was like, should I actually be watching this? I almost wish now in retrospect that I didn't, so that I could just experience the stuff in the game right up front, but it honestly looks incredible. As someone who's been a big fan of Bethesda titles, all the way back to Morrowind was really the first one I fell in love with, and I've loved most of the games since then. Starfield is shaping up to be truly incredible. There are some aspects about it that, for me personally, I'm not as excited about. The crafting stuff, building ships and bases, I think is really cool for a lot of people. I'm hoping that there's a few maybe simplified options for people that would rather just take a good template and be on their way and go about it. But the companion stuff, the gunplay, the factions, everything else they showed really resonated with me, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. Now, all the hype for the games aside, one thing I do want to touch on that is maybe a little bit more of a mixed feeling. Again, we didn't see a lot of raw gameplay for a lot of titles. Stuff was in engine, but it's still not the same thing as seeing what it's like to actually play it. Hellblade 2, for instance, was one of those situations, and it's something that I get why that happens. It's sometimes a lot easier to make something look cool with that kind of thing rather than showing just regular raw gameplay. But at the same time, I wish we saw a little bit more on that end. Really, I think a big thing for me is that this was a fantastic showcase. I think all the games they showed were great. I think there's a lot of promise here. I really hope it all ends up getting delivered on. I mean, this is something that's happened time and time again with Xbox a little bit, where they have been able to have good showcases in the past. They've been able to do great pitches before. I mean, even going back to last year, right, when they had that 1-year promise, I loved that showcase. Obviously, in retrospect, there was a bit of a problem though, because a lot of that didn't end up happening on the schedule they were promising, and some of those games still aren't even actually out yet. And so I really don't want this showcase to be another one of those situations. We also got some new reveals from Capcom and Sega that really took me by surprise. The Capcom one, for a split second, I thought was going to be them doing Onimusha again, which, when I realized that, did feel like a tiny bit of a gut punch, but it still looks like a really interesting game that I want to check out. And then Sega showed off what I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be Yakuza 8. I was a little confused by the trailer a tiny bit, but look, I love Ichiban, I love the Yakuza games, and just the kind of humorous tone they took for this trailer, I'm really vibing with, and I cannot wait to learn more about it. You know, everything looked amazing, and if we actually get it on some kind of regular schedule, it's going to be an amazing time for Xbox. But if a year from now we're still waiting to see a lot of the stuff, I just hope this is one of those things where it doesn't become an issue in retrospect. Aside from games, there's two other things I want to touch on. Phil Spencer was wearing a Hexen shirt a lot, which I don't know what that's about, because I would love to see something happen with Hexen again someday. I thought that was a really cool franchise in concept back in the day, and it's something that's under Activision still, so I don't know if that's sort of like a, hey, you know, maybe that's something we'll do someday, maybe we'll get the IP, maybe if it's, I don't know. He was wearing a Hexen shirt, and it was really making my brain go, why that choice right now? And then, of course, there was also a short hardware reveal at this thing as well, with the new Xbox Series S that is $350, but offers a 1TB SSD, which is really nice in concept. Honestly, I actually do use my Series S a lot, and the storage has been an issue. I do wonder though that for a lot of people whether or not that bumped up price is going to be an issue, because sure, it's only $50 more than the Series S, the regular one, but it's also now only $150 shy of a Series X, you know, so what is that really kind of cutoff point for a lot of people? And so I'm curious to see how this new larger storage size model goes to kind of show and reflect what people are willing to pay for. So overall, I think it was a fantastic showcase. I think it's a great promise for what the future of Xbox can look like, and I just really hope it ends up getting delivered on. So those are just my thoughts on the Xbox showcase. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys thought about what they showed off today. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit thumbs up button, let me know, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys later. So, I just got to the Xbox showcase. Hey, I gotta work.